Today morning, 1 hour before I am shooting this video, Putin made an emergency broadcast to all Russians. And I quote, "Prigozhin is pushing the country into anarchy and unrest. In the end, there will be defeat." And another quote from the same speech, "This is a stab in the back. The same blow was inflicted in 1917. The Russians killed the Russians and the West got the benefit." Well, my friends, the real civil war in Russia has started. Prigozhin has taken all of his 25,000 troops, crossed the Russian border from Ukraine to Russia, occupied 2 full oblasts bordering with Ukraine. So far the biggest cities fallen under Wagner are Rostov-on-Don and Voronezh. All the footage you see in this video are from last night and today morning of Wagnerites occupying new cities in Russia. Some Russian units have gone over to his side. This is a full coup. This is a militarized power grab. This is what me and other military bloggers have been talking about. There will be a civil war. This is it. It started today. Now this map focuses on Ukraine, but I will use it to show how much ground Wagner has taken in 12 hours. Rostov-on-Don, one of the biggest cities in the area right here. And this entire oblast bordering Luhansk and Donetsk is under Wagner control. This area is already half the size of the Russian-occupied Ukraine. But that is not it. The next big city, Voronezh, was occupied a few hours ago by the time of making this video, meaning also northern Lugansk. The oblast bordering northern Lugansk is also under Wagnerite control. And what's the goal? We see Rostov, Voronezh, Moscow. They're going to Moscow with 25,000 troops. And I have to say a disclaimer, every minute some new information surfaces, so I make this video with the information I have right now. By the time I will upload it, I have had to edit it for a few hours. I've had to upload it. By the time this comes out, you will have new information that I don't right now. And you will get another update tomorrow that includes all of that new information. But what really happened? Let's go through events following how they happened, one by one. Yesterday morning, Prigozhin shared this video, claiming that Shoigu, the Russian defense minister, has ordered a missile strike against Wagner headquarters or Wagner positions in Ukraine. Prigozhin claims there are hundreds of Wagner casualties, and this was an organized Russian Minister of Defense attack against Wagner, trying to eliminate Wagner. And this is an open accusation, one that you don't do in Russia. Things really started escalating from there. When this video came up, many called it fake because there are no bodies and it's just a few trenches covered with leaves. I mean, you cannot really say if it's fake or real, but it doesn't really matter because events have begun to unfold already. After these accusations from Prigozhin that Russian Ministry of Defense attacked them with missiles, Russian FSB issued an arrest warrant against Prigozhin, declaring him as a terrorist. This is now a Russian power structure bringing this conflict onto the next level. By this time, Prigozhin and Russian Ministry of Defense are very openly in conflict, and Prigozhin is declared a criminal. The head of the Russia's biggest private army now has an arrest warrant on his head. What happens now? What does Prigozhin do? Well, he gathered all 25,000 of his soldiers' equipment, everything he had in Ukraine, crossed the Russian border, published a voice recording saying that this is an equality march. Yes, that's what he called it, an equality march. I was very confused when I saw that. I mean, Prigozhin talking about equality. Well, it doesn't matter what's the name of it. The goal of it, by his words, was to go to Moscow and chat with Shoigu and Gerasimov. I don't know what he means by chat with, but I don't think he wants to chat with them. At that time, he doesn't yet mention Putin, but he's openly stating that he will go to Moscow by force with his 25,000 troops, and anybody who tries to stop him will be eliminated. The Russian civil war has started. Only one day before, the biggest private army, Wagner, was fighting under the Russian Ministry of Defense. And one day later, they are declared terrorists, and their banners, as we can see from this video, are removed from all cities of Russia. Their headquarters in St. Petersburg is surrounded by Russian riot police, and by the time I'm making this video, it's probably been raided also. At this time, Prigozhin came out with this information. The chief of the Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, gave the order to attack Wagner columns by aircraft. Only the pilots refused to carry out this order. Later it turned out the pilots did not refuse because 3 helicopters attacked the Wagner convoy, and this was a convoy. Similar to the Kiev convoy, about 30 to 40 kilometers long. There are videos where the convoy does not end, hundreds of vehicles, I mean it is thousands of troops all back together in on one road, at this time to Rostov-on-Don. One Russian army helicopter opened fire on the convoy, destroying one Wagner pickup with a heavy machine gun mounted on the back. This was enough for Prigozhin. He activated his air defense. He has Panzer air defense systems in his equipment list. They shot down that helicopter, but it didn't end there. Wagner shot down 2 more helicopters. By the time of making this video, Russian aviation has lost 3 helicopters, 2 Mi-8s and 1 Mi-35 to the Wagner forces in Russia. And then Wagner enters Rostov-on-Don, the biggest Russian city in the area. Russian army and the police and the riot police were ordered to put up barricades and not let them through. And we can see from this video that they did drive buses and trucks to block the road. But when seeing the Wagnerite forces, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, thousands of troops with full equipment, if you're police or riot police and you're facing a tank, barrel is pointed at your face, I don't think you're gonna shoot. This is what happened. The Wagner convoy simply passed the barricades and the Russian OMON riot police by driving around it on the grass and the sidewalks. The police did not do anything. Then this video surfaced of Wagner troops in Rostov-on-Don getting ready to storm the Russian Southern Army headquarters in Rostov-on-Don. It's a building where all of the Russian army work is being done. There are thousands of Wagnerites fully armed. The garrison stands no chance. And this is the same building, and we can see Wagner tanks facing the building, all barrels pointed at the building. If you're a Putin loyalist in that building, you see 10 tanks pointed and being surrounded, you're not gonna fight, and this is what happened. There was no fighting. No armed clashes. Then this video surfaced, and this is General Surovikin, as they call it, the General Armageddon, the butcher of Syria. He published a video holding his sidearm and appealing to Prigozhin. And I will quote, "I call you to stop. The enemy is waiting for our internal political situation to aggravate. We shouldn't play into the enemy's hand in this difficult time for the country. It needs to be done before it's too late to obey the will and order of the people, elect President of the Russian Federation, stop the columns and return to their permanent positions and places of concentration." He calls for Prigozhin to step down and go back to Ukraine. Prigozhin and Surovikin got along. They had a relationship different than the Russian Minister of Defense and Prigozhin. But Surovikin has chosen a side. He's a Putin loyalist. And then Wagnerite forces took Rostov-on-Don. First they took the military headquarters and then the entire city. And in this video, Prigozhin gives a video update of occupying the city. He claims that Valery Gerasimov was in the city, but he fled before the arrival of Wagnerite forces. And Prigozhin claims there was no shots fired. Everybody surrendered peacefully. The fighter bomber Telegram channel says that Russian aviation, because the war in Ukraine is going on, Russian aviation from Rostov airfield has been allowed to continue their military operations. Only every helicopter has to have a Wagner operative on the board to make sure they're not attacking the Wagner convoys. So now Wagner is making sure the war in Ukraine continues and the war in Russia continues, but according to their terms. Again, this is the city of Rostov-on-Don. This was the first one to be taken. It's the biggest city in the area, and the big road, the big highway leads north, as you can see. And what is the next city? A Wagner convoy drove all night. We're talking about hundreds of vehicles, and the next city is Voronezh, right here. It is also another very big city, and now they're arriving here. Voronezh, as you can see, is one of the biggest cities in the way to Moscow. If they take this city, the road to Moscow is open. But this is where the clashes started. Now we're getting reports of first firefights between Russian Minister of Defense forces and Wagner forces. In Russia, everybody calls the Wagnerites the musicians, because Wagner was a composer, as everybody knows. Well, they say the musicians have arrived in Voronezh. About 2 to 3 hours after arriving to Voronezh, Prigozhin stated that they have taken control of every important building in Voronezh, the police stations, the hospitals, the military facilities, and Voronezh as a city is under Wagnerite control with the surrounding areas. There were firefights, clashes. It didn't go as Rostov-on-Don did. In this photo, you can see the first Russian fighter bomber attack against Wagnerite convoys. They say it was a Russian plane bomb, Fab 500. and it was dropped on a highway that the Wagner convoy was riding on. That happened after Voronezh. And in this video you can see a huge Wagner convoy on their way to Moscow after taking Voronezh. They're acting extremely fast. We're talking 2 oblasts in 12 hours and now already driving on to Voronezh, and they're doing that with 25,000 forces. In this real timeline now we have catched up to by the time I'm making this video, and 1 hour ago Putin made an emergency speech. Let's watch the most important parts about it. And therefore the actions that split our unity are apostasy from our people, from our comrades in arms who are now fighting at the front. This is a stab in the back for our country and our people. It was such a strike that was dealt to Russia in 1917 when the country waged the First World War. Well, he compares Wagner with Lenin right now, because in 1917 Lenin was the head of the power grab, and then the Soviet Union started. I mean, if he really means that comparison, then he is doomed, then he is the Tsar, and Lenin is coming to eliminate the entire family. And as much as I'm seeing right now, it sure looks like it. Some very juicy information came out after this speech. We'll get to it. But the victory was stolen. Intrigues, squabbles, politicking behind the backs of the army, and the people turned into the greatest shock. The destruction of the army and the collapse of the state, loss of vast territories. As a result, the strategy of the civil war, Russians killed Russians, brothers killed brothers. And various political adventurers and foreign forces who divided the country and tore it apart benefited. We won't let this happen again. We will protect our state and people from any threats, including from internal betrayal. What we are facing is betrayal. Exorbitant, ambitious and personal interests led to treason. Treason to their country and their people, and to the battle of which the Wagner fighters and commanders fought and died side by side with our other units. Heroes who liberated Soledar and Bakhmut cities and towns of Donbass. Putin is angry, you can see it. He wasn't ready for this, because he was living in his illusion bubble, in his delusions, because no real information was getting to him. Now a man who is present on the battlefield always, Prigozhin, is coming for him. Prigozhin is no man who joke. He's a cruel man, and I can see that Putin is afraid of him. The speech continues. They fought and died for Novorossiya and the unity of the Russian world. Their name and glory were also betrayed by those who were trying to organize a rebellion, pushes the country to anarchy and fratricide, to defeat as a result and to surrender. I repeat, any internal turmoil is a deadly threat to our statehood. For us, as a nation, this is a strike on Russia, our people. And our actions to protect against such a threat will be harsh. All who deliberately took path of betrayal, who prepared an armed rebellion, embarked on the path of blackmail and terrorist methods, will suffer inevitable punishment. They will answer both before the law and before our people. The armed forces and other state bodies receive the necessary orders. So now Putin is saying there is no talk, we will eliminate these terrorists. He goes directly against Prigozhin. He has not mentioned Prigozhin once, and he will not. But this is the most direct talk about Prigozhin we get from Putin throughout this war. And he has picked a side. There is no mediating. He's with the Russian Ministry of Defense, and the Russian Ministry of Defense is with Putin, and they're fighting against Wagner. It's official. Additional anti-terrorist measures are now being introduced in Moscow, the Moscow region, and a number of other regions. Decisive actions will also be taken to stabilize the situation in Rostov-on-Don. The situation remains difficult. In fact, the work of civil and military authorities is blocked. Well, other way to say this is we have lost 2 oblasts bordering Ukraine to Wagner forces in 12 hours. As president and supreme commander of Russia, and as a citizen of Russia, I will do everything to defend the country. Protect the constitutional order, life and security, freedom of citizens. I can't take this seriously. The one who organized and prepared a military rebellion, who raised arms, he says the one who organized. He doesn't say Prigozhin. He doesn't even want to give him platform or name. He doesn't want to give millions of Russians who are watching this the name. They don't want them to hear his name even. because he knows people will go to Prigozhin's side because he's a man from the street, he's a thug. Everybody can identify with him in Russia. Putin lives in his high castle, disconnected from the people. He knows he will lose this battle. Who raised arms against his comrades in arms betrayed Russia. And they will answer for it. And I urge those who are being dragged into this crime not to make a fatal, tragic mistake. And make the only right choice, stop participating in criminal activities. I believe that we will save and preserve that what is dear and sacred to us. And together with our motherland, we will overcome any trials. Let's get even stronger. 1 hour ago, Putin made this speech, and Prigozhin was watching this speech because before he didn't know what side Putin would be on. Putin never addressed directly this issue, but now Prigozhin released this information. The trigger of civil war has pulled Pipa. Putin, he used the Pipa. Instead of sending 1 or 2 degenerates into retirement, him and Shoigu and Gerasimov, he gave the order to neutralize the most combat-ready unit in Russia. The life of 1 or 2 traitors was placed above 25,000 heroes. Who is evil in this conflict is already obvious. The victory will be for a private military company, Wagner. Prigozhin has officially stated he will go against Putin. Before he was only going against the Ministry of Defense, Shoigu and Gerasimov. It is getting more and more official. In this time frame now, it has started the loyalty pledging. Everybody in Russia now has to choose a side. 2 decades of apolitical mindset in Russia are over. You choose Putin and the Ministry of Defense, or you choose Wagner. You cannot be apolitical because Putin compared him with Lenin, and Lenin said, if you're not with us, you're against us. There is no in-between in Russia anymore. And big military bloggers have started to pledge their loyalties. Kots, Badubny, Begov, all of those big military bloggers made clear statements that they will stay loyal to Putin and the Putin regime. And there are other big military bloggers who are loyal to Wagner. And there are reports of Russian units going over to Wagner. Possibly, we're looking at a bloody conflict to come. And then there are the prisoners who got weapons. This is the Storm Z unit. Let's see what they pledge. Yevgeny Viktorovich, What's up from the front line? Greetings to you from all of the lads. We fully support you. Make some noise at any time and we'll come to screw up these rear rats in their cabinets. It's been a long time these bastards should have been kicked out. Zhenya, we're with you till the end. Just let us know when we'll come. All Storm C is behind you. Crushing these maggots is long overdue. Storm Z has numbers. There are still up to 10,000 prisoners active, taking part in this war. There are people who have been convicted, they have the criminal mindset, they're not afraid to shoot, kill, they have less filters. Having them on Wagner's side is a big problem for Putin. And this is not the only units. Many units have pledged loyalties to Wagner and many units have pledged loyalties to Putin. It is not clear at all right now where the tables will turn. I will keep you updated on this Russian civil war and the Russo-Ukrainian war. Tomorrow you will get another update. And as I said, by the time this video will be uploaded, it is outdated because things are happening so fast. So don't use it against me. You'll get more information tomorrow. Thank you for watching and thank you for trusting me to deliver these news for you. I'll try to get it to you as fast as possible. If you want to support what I do, the Patreon link is in the description below. It really helps me out to make sure I can focus on my work and not worry about the material aspect of it. I'll see you in the Patreon. And as always, until my next video, Slava Ukraini.